Hey, what's up? My name's Samuel Leeds. Welcome back to my channel. This is a property investment question and answer session where you can literally ask me any question you want about property investment, finance, mortgages, and I'll do my best to answer from my experience to help you in your property journey. So please, right now, below in the comment box, start asking your questions. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start answering questions from last week. And while I'm answering questions from last week, if you have an offshoot to a question, or you think, oh, that actually reminds me about, I'm stuck with this, or I'm stuck with that, anything at all, comment below, go crazy, and let's see what happens next week when I answer your questions. Also, please do me a massive favor, hit the like button. Also, if you're not subscribed, imagine how awful it would be if I'm answering your question in next week's Q&A video and you don't even know because you didn't get a notification to say that I'd uploaded the video. So go ahead, subscribe, turn the notification bell on, and let's see what questions we had last week. So we have got John Augustus, who says, how do you decide what letting agent is reasonable to work out your ROI? God bless you. Thank you very much, John. So in terms of ROI, working out your return on investment and also calculating that in with your letting agent fees, firstly, generally speaking, a letting agent for a single let property will typically charge about 10% of the rent, and that will be to manage the property, to collect the rent. It'd be a reasonably hands-off experience for you, the investor. Some charge a little bit more, maybe 12%. If it's a HMO, they might even charge 15%, but 10% is standard industry norm. So when you're working out your return on investment, you're very simply just going to work out how much profit are you making every single month, which will be your rent minus your management costs, your maintenance and voids, and your mortgage payments. And then whatever profit you've got, you'll take that profit, the annual profit, and you'll divide it by your total investment. So in other words, if your total investment was 20 grand and your annual profit is 10 grand, then you divide 10 grand by 20 grand, which will give you 50%, which will be really good. And typically I look for property investments that give me a 20% or higher return on investment. And of course, if you're using other people's money, then your return on investment is infinite because you've not invested anything at all. I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much. All right, Kevin Humphrey says, I have a property with land to the side. I have completely restored the 3-bed semi property. I have planning passed for two-bed semis. That's awesome. What is the best way to raise funds to complete the build? Great question, Kevin. So there's a few different ways you could do this. If you have got planning to build a house, you could try and get a bridging loan. It would also depend on whether you've got a charge already against your property. So I would probably suggest speaking to a mortgage broker or a bridging company. You could raise the money from a private investor, but before you do anything, I would suggest working out, is it worth building or not? What are your figures? So how much is it going to cost you to build a second property, and what is the end value going to be? So I'd work out your figures, work out your due diligence, and then present that to either private investors or to bridging companies, development finance. But if the deal's good and if the figures stack nicely and there's profit to be made, you should find that it's very easy to get the finance in place. If you need any further help, or if you want to drop me a message on Instagram or on Facebook, Kevin, please go ahead and do that. And if there's any way I can help personally, I will. Sounds like you've got a really juicy potential deal lined up. Hey, by the way, if you're enjoying the video, hit the like button. That would really help me out. Okay, George Shorts says, for my next project, I'm thinking of doing commercial to residential in London by taking advantage of permitted development. But I don't understand how commercial property is valued. Great question, George. Commercial property is actually one of the easiest types of property to value because it's valued based on the rent. So if you're buying a commercial property, whether that be an office block or whether that be shops or a hairdressing salon, the property is going to be valued based on how much rent it's bringing in. That's why some properties, or not even properties, you can have a tent or a steel warehouse. You know, the steel, the little tinny steel, might be worth peanuts, but the warehouse, which is made out of this steel, is worth a fortune because the business is paying a lot of rent to be in that warehouse. A hairdressing salon will be valued based on how much the hairdressers are paying for the premises. Now, that's how it's valued, okay? The really good thing about what you're looking to do is if you're wanting to turn a commercial property into a residential property, commercial property right now is falling, it's dropping because more and more people are working from home, especially in London. You're right about the permitted development, and there's also more changes coming in August, which is really, really exciting. I can spend a long time talking about that right now, but I won't. But in London, there's a lot of offices that are empty right now, which means that the values of the property is dropping significantly. So, however, residential property is booming. So buying a commercial property using permitted development to turn it into residential property is actually a really, really smart move. So again, if you need any help with that, drop me a message. If there's any way I can help you or deals that I can look at, I'll be very, very happy to assist and help on that. So great job. I hope to see you win. All right, Ben Mack says, me and my partner are wanting to get a loan to invest in our rent-to-rent business. What type of loan is the best to do this? Many thanks, Ben. All right, Ben, so first thing I'll say is, if you're gonna get a loan to set up a rent-to-rent business, that's not a bad move. I wouldn't say it's a good move or a bad move. It really just depends on how successful your rent-to-rent business ends up being. I probably wouldn't suggest getting a really big loan. You don't need more than about £5,000 or £10,000 max to start a rent-to-rent business. I mean, a lot of people have started rent-to-rent businesses from practically nothing. In terms of where to get their money from, first thing I'll say is this, disclaimer, a rent-to-rent business comes with risks. So if you're going to be borrowing money to put into doing rent-to-rent deals, make sure that you can afford to pay the money back should the business not be as fruitful as you hoped. Also, make sure that when you're putting the money into the rent-to-rent business, you know what you're doing. You understand the business. You've done due diligence. You understand the supply, the demand, the best case, worst case. You get the business. If you get the business and you can afford to pay back the money should it not work as you hoped, you could get a credit card. You could get maybe not a business loan because they'd probably say it's too risky. Ironically, they'd happily give you the money to get married, but they wouldn't give it you to do a rent-to-rent business, which is interesting. An overdraft, you could team up with somebody, you could find another investor and you could say, hey look, I'm doing a rent-to-rent business, could you put £3,000 in, I'll start the business and we'll go 50-50 on the profits on the deal. There's loads of ways. There's an unlimited amount of money on the planet. They are printing hundreds of billions. You don't need 1 billion. You don't need 1 million. You don't need 100,000. You just need 2 or 3 grand. So good luck. Keep me posted on how you get on, Ben. Jesse, let's say you're 19 with a couple £1,000s. What strategy would you start off in property? I would probably start with rent to rent. If you've got a couple £1,000s, rent a studio apartment and get permission to then re-rent it out on Airbnb and Booking.com, pay £700 a month, but then rent it out for £150 a night. Of those bookings, pay the rent, pay the bills and the management, and then the profit, keep for yourself. On average, if it's done right, each property that you do like that should make you a minimum of £500 per month. With £2,000, if you play your cards right and you know what you're doing, you should be able to turn that £2,000 into £500 a month. It's not going to be passive. It will involve a bit of work, but you've only got to do that 3 or 4 times and you can replace an average salary. It's very, very doable. I've done this, I was going to say hundreds of times, and then I was trying to work out, have I done it hundreds of times? But I've done this countless amount of times, and so have many, many of my students. All right, Samuel Habtu. How can I learn about property investment without spending £500 for a crash course? I'm broke, so is there any way I can get started without money? All right, Samuel. Firstly, the crash course is not £500. The crash course is £1, okay? most of my training is either free or ridiculously affordable. So the very fact that you're kind of coming about this with this mindset of, like, it feels to me, Samuel, like you've got a good name, but you're coming about this with, I'm broke, I haven't got this going for me, isn't it hard? I would say flip the cards, okay? There's three currencies that exist. There's money, which you don't have much of. You don't need lots of money to come on the crash course, bro. You need £1, right? There's money, but there's also time and knowledge. If you haven't got money, what have you got? Focus on what you've got going for you rather than what you haven't got. And is it possible? Of course it's possible to make money starting with no money. But you will need time, creativity, and a can-do attitude. So focus on that first, and then maybe different things will start happening. Need any help? Give me a shout. Hope to see you win. All right, last question. Aaron Ashworth. I have equity of £350,000 in my house and a buy-to-let, but probably can't refinance my home mortgage as it is approximately 5 times my income. If I switch my home mortgage to interest only, I may be able to release £150,000 to start training and buying some more property. Is putting my home mortgage onto interest only a good idea? What are the risks? Aaron, is it a good idea? I would probably say yes. I mean, listen, I don't know your situation and I can't say, yes, go and do that. It's your decision. You're an adult. But personally, I think that an interest-only mortgage is probably smarter than a repayment mortgage. And the reason being is because, number one, you're going to pull out some equity, which is great because your home that you live in isn't paying you any money. It's not getting you rich. It's just a home that you own. Paying off the mortgage quickly isn't going to help you. It's just going to reduce your expenses slightly. You don't need to reduce your expenses slightly. You need to become financially free to build a portfolio so that you can live the life of your dreams. So I would probably say, if you do it right, refinancing, pulling out £150,000, then being on an interest-only mortgage, leaving your debt on your existing home, but then using your equity to buy more properties, to then rent out, and then with the rent, if you do it right, you can pay off your mortgage interest payments, but there'll be a big difference which you can live on and enjoy the cash flow. That would probably be a lot smarter. So that's my 2 pennies. I hope that helps. Thank you so much for watching the video, but let me tell you something. I want to answer some more questions. I'm excited for some juicy questions. So comment your questions below. I will try my best to respond to as many as I can in next week's Q&A Sunday at 7 p.m. Be there or be square. Make sure you subscribe over here. If you want to see more information about our training programs, you can check out a trailer right here. Go watch that. It's not £500, it's £1. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thanks so much. Peace out.